So let me introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is our very own Dr. Somaratne from the Center of Buddhist Studies, and he's going to be speaking on the topic of strategic use of prose-verse texts as an ancient method of Dharma transmission, a case study of selected discourses of the Pali Canon. Dr. Somaratne is a scholar in early Buddhist teachings, in Theravada Abhidharma, Pali text editing and translation, and the study of religion. He's currently in his retirement. He holds the teaching position of senior lecturer at the Center of Buddhist Studies here at HKU. He has had an extensive academic career, previously holding positions such as Associate Professor of Buddhist Studies at HKU, Associate Professor of Religion at Miyazaki International College in Japan, Professor of Pali and Buddhist Studies at the University of Peradeniya. He was also the rector of the Sri Lanka International Buddhist Academy and co-director of the Dhammachai Tripitaka project in Thailand. Dr. Somaratne earned his BA with first-class honours from the University of Kalinya and his MA and his PhD from Northwestern University in the US. Following his graduation, he undertook 3 years of postdoctoral research at the University of Oxford, where he served as a senior research fellow at Balliol College and a research fellow of the Pali Text Society. His recent publications include The Buddha's Teaching, a Buddhistic Analysis, and An Introduction to Early Buddhist Soteriology, both published by Palgrave Macmillan in 2021 and 2022 respectively. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Somaratne.
Thank you, Professor Catherine Hardy, for an excellent introduction about me. Actually, it reminded me that how I approach this research project. When I was at Oxford, I edited this Pali Sagatavaka Samyutta Nikaya first volume, and 2 years ago I translated this Sagatavaka into English, and now I came into a third level. I wanted to study what these texts are in this Sagatavaka. So I found that these texts are identified as Geya text. Geya means basically prose and verse, mixed prose and verse text. Of course, this Geya comes as one of the 9 angas, anga classification of the Pali Tipitaka, Buddha Vachana, word of the Buddha. However, from this research, what I am looking for and what I also discovered is that these are not just text. Okay, so these anga divisions, they are not just text, but they are literary styles. They are literary forms and also methods of presenting the Buddha's teaching. So that is basically my research, the big research. And today I am just going to discuss a smaller section of this research. So since we have limited time, so I am going to read. Okay. Okay, so the topic you already know, strategic use of prose-verse text as an ancient method of Dhamma transmission, a case study of selected discourses of the Pali Canon. The Pali Canon is considered the earliest and most comprehensive collection of Buddhist teachings. It employs a variety of literary forms to convey its profound doctrinal insights. The canon itself recognizes a standard list of 9 literary forms, Navanga, employed to present the Buddha's teachings. Among these, the prose-verse literary format called Geya, so Geya actually means that which is to be sung or recited, stands out as a particularly effective method for Dhamma transmission. So Geya allows alternating between prose and verse, like Gadya Padya, within short text. So most of these texts are actually short texts, facilitating doctrinal clarity and engaging the audience emotionally, making the teachings more relatable and impactful. The Geya format was particularly effective in conveying complex teachings in a way that was both accessible and memorable. The prose sections provide the narrative framework and detailed explanations, while the verses condense key teachings into beautiful metrical lines, ensuring the teachings are accessible and impactful to a wide range of audiences. So Geya texts are typically concise and often presented in a dialogue format, making them naturally adaptable for oral recitation or performance. Many short suttas of the Sagatha Vagga of the Samyutta Nikaya exemplify this trait. Actually, there are various other texts that can be within this group. For example, in the Anguttara Nikaya, it's also a collection of short texts. So there are around 7 chapters, continuous 7 chapters, where this mixed prose and verse texts occur. So commentaries classify them as Geya texts, which can be easily chanted and enacted. So their performative quality is further demonstrated through traditional Sri Lankan Paritta chanting and Dhamma preaching by 2 monks. This is an interesting traditional way of preaching, that 2 monks are seated together and then one asks question, the other answers. So, and folk dramas where narratives in the suttas like Alavaka and Angulimala are performed. So this oral tradition not only preserves the teachings but also embodies their charitable and reciprocal nature. When I say charitable, actually mean that idea of sharing teachings generously within the community. And reciprocal, as you understand, the mutual engagement between the reciter and the audience. So an inherent feature of text passing down in oral cultures. The performative and oral aspects of Geya reinforce their enduring relevance in religious rituals and community practices. This study focuses on selected discourses of the Pali Canon to explore how the strategic use of prose and verse enhances both the accessibility and retention of Buddhist teachings. By analyzing the structure, literary devices, and pedagogical strategies employed in these discourses, this research aims to shed light on the enduring effectiveness of Geya, not only as a literary genre and a form of text, but also as a method of teaching in Buddhist education. The earliest literary journals used to present the Buddha's teachings, Buddha Vachana, as informed in the Mahasunyata Sutta of the Majjhima Nikaya are threefold. So these are basically now already we know as 9 angas, or in Mahayana Buddhism 9 or 12 angas. But in the earliest suttas, actually we find this only 3, like a sutta, like doctrinal or disciplinary aphorisms in prose, and Geya, recitations in mixed prose and verse, and Vaiyakarana, explanatory and analytical expositions in prose. There is, in this Mahasunya Sutta is very interesting because they are actually Buddha discouraged monks to just come to him to learn this. As I will just little quote, indeed, Ananda, it is not proper for a disciple to follow the teacher solely for the sake of hearing discourses, that means sutta, and verses, Geya, and explanations, Vaiyakarana. Why is that? For a long time, the Buddha says that these monks are basically learn them, and now it's time for them to really to practice. So this passage underscores the importance of seeking transformative teachings rather than merely accumulating knowledge. It emphasizes that the disciple should not follow the teacher merely for the sake of hearing Sutta Geya Vyakarana. So these are important, but they are not the ultimate purpose of following the teacher. So these initial forms reflect the Buddha's skillful means in finding simple but effective literary forms to convey his message to diverse audiences. This threefold journey was sufficient as pedagogical means in the early Buddhist communities, where the teachings were primarily transmitted orally by the Buddha and his immediate disciples. As the Buddhist canon grew with compositions in different lengths and literary genres, the need for more detailed classification of its literary styles, texts, and methods became apparent. The threefold division of literary genres gradually expanded to a ninefold, so which became the standard literary classification in Theravada tradition. So the ninefold division includes sutta, like sermons, and then Geya, short sermons in mixed prose and verse. Now we are discussing, and Vyakarana and Gatha, the verses, Udana, inspired utterances, Itiuttaka, sayings of the Buddha, Jataka, birth stories, and Abhuta Dhamma, marvelous phenomena, and the Vedalla, dialogues or catechisms. So this ninefold division reflects not only the growing complexity of the Buddhist canon and the need to regroup the teachings based on their literary form and content, but also the type of literary styles used or recommended to be used in teaching the Buddha's teachings. It also shows the fast growth of recitation text. So, for example, the early compilers find the need to divide the prose verse text like this Geya text. So they separate Geya from standalone verses like Gatha and verse text like Dhammapada. And two other literary genres, Udana and Itiuttaka. So in Udana and Itiuttaka also we will find both prose and verse. So all of which could easily be fit into Geya collections. So because this recitation tradition became important and grew, so as a result, the many collections came in. So therefore they found that now it's time to divide them again into some other categories. So the terms Geya and Gatha, though derived from the root ga, to sing, became technical terms to denote text in mixed prose and verse and also standalone verses respectively. As the Buddhist canon grew, the Tipitaka, the three baskets division emerged. The teachings in smaller collections belonging to 9 literary genres or text types were organized into 3 large collections, Vinaya, Sutta, and Abhidhamma. So later in the history, the Pali commentators saw the varying literary genres abandoned in different collections and attempted to define and locate them in the new structure, but with less clarity and precision. So Buddhaghosa's explanations of Navanga that primarily takes the Angas as the text type show his difficulty in discriminating sections of the canon as corresponding to Navanga. So, for example, Dhammasangani define each Anga. I just read a little bit from that quote. So, how is it that the teachings are divided into 9 limbs? All of this, the Buddha's teaching is divided into 9 categories: Sutta, Geya, Vyakarana, Gatha, Udana, Itiuttaka, Jataka, Abhuta Dhamma, and Vedalla. In this regard, the Sutta means Vibhanga, Nirdesha, Khandaka, Parivara of the Vinaya Pitaka, as well as the Mahamangala Sutta, Ratana Sutta, Tuataka Sutta of the Sutta Nipata, and any other teachings of the Tathagata that bear the name Sutta are to be understood as Sutta. So not very precise. And the Geya, all suttas that contain verses are to be understood as Geya. Especially the entire Sagatavagga of the Samyutta Nikaya fall under this category. So it identifies that Sagatavagga, of course, fall into that. but it says all suttas contain verses. But of course, then we find some other suttas which are not classified under here. So Vaiyakarana, the entire Abhidhamma Pitaka, as well as any other without verses. So, and any other teachings of the Buddha not included in the 8 limbs are to be understood as Vaiyakarana. So this way, Buddha goes attempt to sort of define them, but actually with less clarity and precision. So this shows that early classification of the word of the Buddha was done recognizing the literary types that were used in present and preserve the Buddha's teaching. 9 angas were not merely a division of text or collections, they are also text types and methods of teaching and preaching. So they do not represent 9 different groups of text, rather 9 types of literary styles used as method of teaching and communicating the Buddha's teaching. So therefore, in a single sutta, like the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, we may find portions of text that could easily be treated under Sutta, Geya, or Gatha, Udana, or Vaiyakarana, or Abhuta Dhamma. So in the Mahayana tradition, some sutras and shastras advocate 2 journal classifications, 9 and 12-fold. So they stand that classification includes additional 3 categories: Nidana, Aupamya similes. So Nidana means causes and conditions, and Upadesha, instructions. So the 9-fold Anga in Mahayana is not consistent. In different texts, it seems that the list is different. So hence may not match with that of Theravada. So Saddharma Pundarika's identification of Navanga list comes as Sutra, Gatha, Itivuttaka, Jataka, Adbhuta, Nidana, Aupamya, Geya, Upadesha. So it's a little different. So the 12-fold division reflects the broader scope of Mahayana teachings and the need to categorize the teachings based on their philosophical nature and pedagogical function. In this context, Geya was defined as a type of discourses in which the verses appear in the middle part or at the end for reciting. So it's for reciting purpose. So we can see from that oral quality. So this emphasis on the poetic and rhythmic aspect of the teachings highlights the importance of oral transmission as well as the recitation of scriptures carried out as a religious practice. Yeah, so the Geya format not only served as a means of teaching and memorization, but also played a crucial role in narrating stories and texts quoting earlier teachings of the Buddha where relevant. The verses embedded within the Geya text often encapsulated core doctrinal points or key teachings that were wholly recognized as and respected within the Buddhist community. So they were often fixed verses that could be quoted in different narratives. This allowed later teachers and commentators to reference and build upon these teachings, enduring their continuity across generations. So in this text, there is certain freedom. So where relevant, you can quote within those texts some from some other earlier discourses or some parts of discourses, or maybe some verses, fixed verses. Like yesterday, Venerable Hing Hong was presenting here about with regard to the Attaka Parayana. Actually, these texts were referred even within the suttas in the canon. So this means they were quoted wherever relevant. So this possibility is there because these texts were actually certain performances, and it is a sort of for chanting or for reciting, because they are also short text. So because of this, the flexibility is given to the reciter, depending on the audience, to quote from some other sources. Yeah. Yeah, for this part, I just make a small conclusion first, and then I go to this, I want to show you the one sutta. So, Anga division in the Pali Canon reflects the evolving needs of Buddhist community and as it sought to organize and preserve the Buddha Vachana. The Geya category, with its roots in poetry and song, highlights the importance of oral tradition in Buddhism, serving as a bridge between the spoken and written word. Whether in the threefold or fourfold or ninefold or 12-fold classification, Geya remains a vital literary journal in the Buddhist canon and its commentaries, embodying the aesthetic and devotional dimensions of the Dhamma. The Geya format, with its prose verse structure, serves as a powerful tool for conveying transformative teachings in a way that is both accessible and memorable. Its doctrinal clarity, emotional engagement, and memorability and pedagogical strategy make it an enduring method of Dhamma transmission both in Theravada and Mahayana traditions. I want to go into that. So I would basically, I just did a case study for this presentation or the Samidhi Sutta. This Samidhi Sutta is a prime example of the Geya style, blending narrative prose with poetic verse to convey profound doctrinal insights. The discourse begins with the prose narrative and sets the scene. The Buddha is staying at the Tapoda Park in Rajagaha, and Venerable Samidhi goes to the hot spring to take a bath. The dialogue between Samidhi and deity that form the first part of the interspersed with verses that encapsulate key teachings. So you could see that this sutta start with just like any other sutta. So thus I have heard. So once the Blessed One was staying at Rajagaha in the Tapoda Park. You will see Venerable Samidhi is a young person, and he is coming and taking bath in the hot spring, and the deity look at the Venerable, and then she recites a verse. So, having not enjoyed, O monk, you beg alms, for you do not beg alms after enjoying. Having enjoyed, O monk, beg alms. May the time not pass you by. So this verse, you will see that it has the sound-wise, this is tutuba, anustup. So abhutva bhikkhasi bhikkhu, nahi bhuttvana bhikkhasi, bhuttvana bhikkhu bhikkhasu, matang kalu pajaka. This ka sound repeated. So it's a sort of an oral quality. And so then the Venerable, this young monk, he replied, he says, I do not know the time of death. The time of death is hidden and not revealed. Therefore, having not enjoyed, I beg alms. So may the time not pass me by. So he also, in this verse also, you will see, Kalang vohan najanami channo kalo nadisati tasma bhuttva bhikkami mamang kalo pachaka. So then the deity come down to earth and again speak to Samidhi. Monk, you are young to have left the world. A youngster, black-haired, endowed with bloom of youth, in your first stage of life, you have not had fun with pleasures. O monk, enjoy human pleasures. Don't run after what takes time, giving up the present moment. So in this context, now Samidhi replies, I, friend, do not give up present moment to pursue what takes time. I give up what time will bring to pursue the present moment. So sensual pleasures, friend, as the Buddha, Blessed One has said, are temporary, fraught with pain, fraught with tribulation, preponderantly risky. Of this part, of course, again, we can see some sort of, he's quoting from an earlier teaching of the Buddha. So this Dhamma is here present and immediate, inviting inspection, leading onward. Every intelligent person can understand it. These are also very standard phrases. He is also basically quoting them from somewhere. So then the deity says, how, monk, has the Blessed One said that the sensual pleasures are temporary, fraught with pain, fraught with tribulation, preponderance risky. So then Samadhi says, I am a new person to this sasana, so therefore I cannot really give you a proper answer. So it's better that you go and meet and talk to the Buddha, and Buddha will give you some answer, and then accept that. So then the deity says that it is not easy for us to approach the Blessed One, as he is surrounded by other deities of great power. If you will approach the Blessed One and ask him about this meaning, then we can come to hear the Dhamma. So then she will say that we can approach the Buddha. So Venerable Samiti say, okay, then I go and inform the Buddha. And the both, of course, go there. So the Samiti repeats this whole thing, that whole story, what happened, and so all these things again repeated. So after that, Buddha speak to this deity. So here, very difficult teachings first Buddha present. These are basically core teachings. So yesterday, Venerable Hingon said that this kind of teachings are maybe the early sources of Mahayana. Actually, if you really examine all these early texts, you will find many that are working for Yogacharya or Madhyamika or Theravada. So all these early teachings are sources for all traditions, actually. So here, this verse is very interesting. I don't know whether I have time. So 1 minute? Okay. So creatures perceive what can be designated and grounded in it through not understanding the imperishable. Or this is a little fun. So we have it can be translated as imperishable, or what can be designated. They fall under the control of death. So the Buddha says, Akkhaya sanyino satta, Akkhayasming patitita, Akkhayang aparinyaya, yogamayanti machuno. So, yes. Then Buddha continues with it, another verse. And having comprehended the imperishable, or even we can translate it as unconditioned, so Nibbana referring to what can be designated, one does not conceive of a designator. It, the imperishable, if you mean by here imperishable, we can translate it as does not have that, by virtue of which one could say of it that it does not have. Or if we take it in another way, so for that does not exist for him, by which one could describe him. So if you know what it means, tell me. So of course this is a contrast between the worldly person and the Arahant. So the Arahant perception and the worldly person's perception. Okay, so then the deity says, this is difficult for me to understand. Then Buddha gives another verse, and then that verse also they find it difficult to understand. Then Buddha gives the third verse, and then finally the deity understand in a very simple way, but actually it's little like a Buddha gives a very deep teaching, but the deity interpret it in a very soft way. So we can say, so I will just quote the last one, that now this verse is recited by the deity. One should not do evil by one's speech, mind and body anywhere in the world. So giving up sensual pleasures, being mindful and aware, one should not associate with the useless pain. So this is how the conclusion comes. So you will see that from this this kind of text, so how these verses were interspersed and prose, and then these are sort of even you can perform it. So like there are certain characters like a deity, the Venerable Samiti, the Buddha. So when you recite them, because these are, if you recite them, actually these texts could be very easily recited because all these are very rhythmical. And when you recite them, the audience will have certain emotions are generated. So that's one purpose of religion also, right? So just the emotional aspect. So not only the doctrinal, philosophical aspect, but the emotional aspects also taken care of. So that is why maybe that if you go with the suttas, somewhat philosophical, and then when you go with this Geya type of text, so that emotional aspects are also become fine. So therefore, these are certain ways of method of Dhamma transmission in early context. Okay, so thank you. So any questions? Okay.
Thank you very much, Dr. Somaratne. We have time for a couple of questions. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Henry?
Thank you very much for this presentation. I found several things quite illuminating, and I just want to ask about one in particular. So you pointed to this early arrangement of three angas, Sutta, Geya, Vyakarana.
Yeah.
And there is, of course, a debate about this between von Hinuba and Analayo and perhaps others, of which I do not know. And they sort of are debating about whether this list was reduced from 9 or expanded from 3 to 9 on the basis of the mnemonic structure, such that the syllables increase, and then when Gata was introduced, it disrupted the mnemonic. So, and this could be done in either direction, basically. Mm-hmm. But you, if I understood you correctly, seemed to suggest that there was some sort of early didactic quality to these three. So you're presenting a quite different argument, actually, which I find very interesting. So I wondered if you could elaborate on that a little bit. And in that regard, is it possible, therefore, to somehow identify very early strata of the Pali suttas on the basis of this observation?
Yeah, so of course this is very what we are talking about is a complex group of texts. So it's very difficult, like some of the, like when you examine the language, for example, you can say, okay, these are like Atthakapara and Vagga type. So the language style and those verses, the content, so some may want to say they are very early. But of course, these compositions, like as they, from that Mahasunyata Sutta itself, as it could be seen, so Buddha, actually, they are coming to the Buddha to learn Sutta, learn Geya, learn the Vyakarana. So that means Buddha was presenting his teaching in some sort of a fixed way, constructing, maybe formatting them. So these are basically the aphorisms or some basic teachings. So everybody should learn them. And these are something that you can chant or recite. So these are some sort of expositions, definitions. So this way, Buddha himself, it seems in early context, the very initial stages. So while he was teaching, he was also thinking about how to preserve the teaching and for the later generations. And also, because it takes sometimes time to study and reflect, because reflection is important. What you learn, you need to reflect. So therefore, in early suttas, you will find this Buddha is emphasizing what you learn, you must reflect. So then, in order to reflect, that means it's not like we don't have books. So now we are talking about the oral. So therefore, people need to little memorize them. Okay, so they study them. So that memorization in studying was a part of the early Buddhist community, education or learning. So therefore, we will see that the initial stages is not that complex. Not many literary styles, because Buddha was like a present, and then he is generating urgency to attain Nibbana. So therefore, only he gives and teaches very basic and very basic things, not much. But later, of course, many elaborations and things come, and then disciples also teach, and then the different contexts they start like this kind of gayer text, for example, we find that you can intersperse any text that Buddha has given, so you can create another story to suit to the audience. So therefore, this expansion, of course, we need to think of in later, rather than earlier that we had all these things and then reduce it to 3 types. So the logical way of to think as a, of course, this is, I know that there are these debates, but this is a scholarly world, so what we are talking about, so they want to find some debates and then join with those and then argue and take sides, but is it the reality? Is this what these texts really reflect? Because this is a complex nature of text, and so we cannot really even say that these are historically first texts and these are later, even though we say, but now we have this received text. Okay, so we are working with this received text. So then the history actually, many things we don't know what had happened. So we know some, but based on those some, we make certain generalizations. So this is, in my opinion, it's not that wise. But only thing that we can now do is like to investigate these suttas and learn them, and then study and whether there are some, this, like for example, the various kinds of oral qualities. This means definitely there was an oral tradition in early context. And then we can see these verses. Okay, why verses? And why we need to recite and chant and sort of sing the Buddha's words? Because it's important. Because it's one way to memorize text easily, content easily. And another way is to basically, you are meeting your people. So the monks also, they are receiving the food from the others, from people, so therefore they also need to give something back to the people. So all these people, general audience, basically they are not thinking about attaining Nibbana. So they are thinking about maybe having a better life here, maybe going into heaven in next life, after that. So for them also, the recitation, listening, so the Buddhism say it's a merit generating. So this means basically something to give to the people also. These verses are very important. Even nowadays, of course, we have these chantings, recitations. They are continuing as part of our traditions. The reason is not just to attain Nibbana or even to reflect much on the philosophical nature, but just to earn merit. So that aspect also we will see. So therefore, we have the received text tradition together with the monastic tradition or practitioner tradition. So of course, in certain periods of time, emphasis went in different ways. Then when we went to more into commentaries and Abhidharma way of looking at things, so as a result, the early suttas were somehow like philosophized some ways. So these kind of things mostly happen through the history. So anyway, so it's simply basically my way of thinking is that smaller to the bigger. Okay, so yeah.
Thank you.
I think we have time for one more question. Okay.
Yeah, Professor.
Thank you very much for the presentation and also for your remarks about history, which I much appreciated. I would like to ask a question about the root gi and its usage in Gaya and elsewhere. And my question is that I noticed I myself have difficulties sometimes deciding whether to translate as chanting or singing. And there's also this question of a rule about which some just say, well, monks are not supposed to sing. But then I looked into the rule a little bit more carefully, and I saw that the rule says something along the lines that one should not chant or sing, whatever we decide, something along the lines of in the elongated manner as lay people do. And I thought I had an idea of what that could mean, but I also heard how in Sri Lanka monks chant the Dhammapada, for example, and so that confused me a bit. So I wonder whether within the tradition there is a more precise way to determine what exactly is meant by in the elongated way in which lay people would do it.
Yeah. So of course, what we are talking about is throughout the history, various influences came to our traditions. Now, even in Indian context, more singing thala, okay, so it's appearing, and then tendency goes because the young people, for example, they like the new modern way of singing. So the tradition also seems to be sort of adjusting to those situations. And even though in early, if you just listen to the Paritta chanting, actually they are not singing. Okay, so they are somewhat in middle. But traditionally, even though certain rules were maintained, but they are not all the time kept well. So because of this, we find the sort of a singing, you can actually sing even this papang, kaira, vachasa, manasa. If you just recite that way, it's not singing. But if you go papang, kaira, vachasa, manasa, kayena va kinchana sabbaloke, so then it may be a little closer to sort of a singing type. So but even you can sing little to coming to more closer to singing. But however, what Buddha was meant was for the monastics, for their own purposes. You should not sing in the sense because if you sing, it is difficult for you to reflect in the content. So the content to reflect on the content, you need to recite. Okay? So recite. So papang na kaira vachasa manasa kaya na va kinchana sabbaloke kame pahaya satima sampajano dukkhang na seveta anatta sanghita. So then you can actually, while reciting, you can also reflect on it. So otherwise you will go into this syllables and those the metrical. But I think as you see that early texts use very limited number of meters. So not many, right? So it's limited number of meters. Most of them are sort of these 8 syllables. So as yesterday in your presentation also you referred to. So we can see that these syllables, these meters, mostly more than reciting. So that singing, they are reciting. So Gaya texts, of course, are to be, because the gata, you can say to sing, meaning maybe sing, but also recite possible. So when we need to interpret things, because these are religious texts, so then in religious context, we need to interpret those what we use as sort of like a gata, Gaya. So we need to translate them as sort of recitation style.
Thank you.
Okay, let's give Dr. Somaratne another thanks.
Okay, thank you very much.